Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. My name is Dan Hafner. I am going to talk to you a little bit today about ads. How do we grow with ads, right? So a lot of us are in this SaaS space, this mobile application space. Advertising in and of itself can be a very difficult game to win at. It can be a controversial game. Do you grow organically? Do you grow with ads? What do you do? Do you do a mixed thing? So there's a lot to talk about in this. I brought in a really cool expert. He's actually a premier Google partner, and is very knowledgeable in this space. I have a lot of questions I want to, a lot of things I want to ask him and dig out of him. So it's going to be really cool. So if you're looking to grow your SaaS or grow your app with Google ads, YouTube ads, anything like that, this will be the episode for you to tune into. So before I bring him in, as always, please like, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review for the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening or watching the show. That's super helpful and helps us grow organically and bring this content to more people. So with that being said, I am joined by Mr. John Horn, who is the CEO of Stub Group, which, as I mentioned, is a Google partner, premier Google partner. They specialize in I'm not sorry, Google advertising. So I won't butcher his intro. So John, how are you, man? Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Dan, doing well. Fantastic to be here. Looking forward to chatting with you. And yeah, like you mentioned, it's the CEO here of Stub Group. We're focused on digital advertising. Google, like you mentioned, we do actually do Facebook, other platforms as well. Really, it's about just
Okay.
helping businesses connect and find new customers online, whether that be SaaS, like your audience. We also work in other spaces as well. But I'm excited to dig into SaaS and apps today with you.
Yeah, this will be fun. So, okay, so we talked about this before we got on. We're going to kind of walk through this as like almost like a consult type of call, but also like let's kind of dive into the generic pieces of it first. So, um, why is Google still such a powerful platform? I think this answer is kind of self-explanatory. It's like the biggest search engine in the world. But for anyone who's never really done Google advertising, why is it different and why is it still such an effective platform to advertise on?
Yeah, it's effective for advertisers because it's still the primary place that people go to find solutions, to find answers. Like you said, it is, by far the top search engine. Bing is a very distant second. And if you're going to say, okay, I want to find something new, I want to get my question answered, whatever, chances are you're going to Google to start that exploration. And so if you're a SaaS company who wants to present yourself as the solution for those questions, you want to be there on search. And then it's not just search as well. A lot of people, they think about Google, they think about search, but Google is a lot more than search. It's YouTube, which obviously has
Yeah.
tremendous audience size, and it's the second biggest search engine after Google. And it's got, all of Google's other properties. Their massive display network across websites, their Discover app, even, ads in Gmail. Google has as many places as possible to extract as much money from advertisers as possible. But that's why it's so powerful, is because so many people are using it.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, as a noob in this advertising world, not that's not really my domain of expertise. I've always remembered that there's a difference in search based advertising versus Facebook, which is kind of termed as this interruption based marketing, right? Like somebody's scrolling through their feed, I see a scroll stopping ad that makes me like a video or a little cheeky thing that makes me click on it, and then I'm like, we've all been there where we're down the rabbit hole on something,
Mhm.
and Google has a lot of different ways where you can, it's almost like search based. There can be things in the side. So there's a key difference there, right?
Yeah, I'd say the key difference between, Google search or any search engine and most other platforms is intent. Because with search, that's the place where right now they're telling you what they're looking for. So I mean, make up an example. If you're an app that helps people improve their tennis game, I'd rather show up for someone who's typing right now, tips to get better at tennis than hoping I find the right person on Facebook who might be interested in tennis. You're going to have a higher conversion rate from Google. Now, that
Yeah.
said, you shouldn't just do Google because there's going to be a lot of people who aren't even thinking to search, and yet they're very relevant to you. So that's where Facebook or something comes in because you're creating awareness of solutions that people aren't necessarily searching for at the moment, and still allowing yourself to expand your audience beyond just the people who are using Google. So both are important, but Google's kind of the bottom of the funnel if you think about sales or marketing as a funnel in terms of people who are most likely to take that action and download your app and start paying you money.
Right, because like you said, like you can Facebook is almost like a broadcasting, like, hey, here's our cool thing, and then you're kind of, you know, that's why the conversion rates are so low. And people are like, oh, these ads don't work. It's because it's like that's kind of how it's designed. It's designed to disqualify most people. Whereas, like you said, you might only be able to attract a handful of link clicks to on Google or on YouTube or a video view, but those people are way more qualified or way more, like you said, intentional about like, hey, I'm actually looking for a swing on a video. How do I improve my tennis swing, because I keep hitting it out of bounds or doing like whatever thing. I'm not a tennis player, but like I can see the, like you said, it's almost like it's a whole different approach to things, right? Very
Yeah,
interesting. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, so okay, so thinking about SaaS, thinking about, I have an application, I have a SaaS product, whatever. For go to market strategy, I've got it built, I've got it validated, I'm ready to kind of do a little bit of advertising, get some traction, get some validation, maybe make a few sales. you know how do I go about reaching my target audience? How do I go about positioning my product in a way that's going to be effective on these platforms?
Yeah, well, let's if you're cool, I'd love to kind of dig in here into the specific idea project you've got. So let's talk about what is your target audience? Who do you want to reach with this product?
Yeah, so this would be great. So for you guys listening, just we're going to pre-frame this with, this is kind of the consult part of the call where we're going to walk through, just picture yourself as me, and like I'm your product, right? Like, so just for a quick pre-frame for that. So I've talked about it on this show before. It's a new platform called Trophy Makers, which is a taxidermist specific platform. Okay, it's basically the Google for taxidermy, right? So you go on Google and you search for taxidermist near me. This is kind of how I came up with the idea was, hey, I can find all these taxidermists near me, but I don't know what they specialize in, what they're rated, if they're even still in business. 90% of them don't have a website, and the other 10% that do have a website was built in 1980 before the internet was a thing. It's a crap show. It's a shit show, right? So the idea for this is that it's a marketplace app. So there are taxidermists who we're attracting to the platform, but also hunters, fishermen, outdoors people, right? Outdoorsmen. So that is the target audience for this particular idea.
Awesome. Someone living in the country in Texas, there are a lot of taxidermists around here, so I am
Yes,
right smack dab in that country. All right, cool. So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's really two target audiences. One is the taxidermists you want to bring onto the supply side, and then also people looking for taxidermists that you want to bring onto the demand side. Is that
correct,
accurate? Okay,
correct.
awesome. So the first thing I would do is I would, think about those two audiences separately, because how we're going to identify them and also what we're going to message to them is going to be very different. So let's start with taxidermists who we want to get onto the platform. First of all, obviously, it's going to be a much smaller audience than people looking for taxidermy. So we're already talking about a smaller bucket of people. So first thing that I'm going to do, well, I like to think about, again, the funnel, kind of the marketing funnel, and start out with the bottom. What's the low hanging fruit where I'm going to have the most chance for success, the biggest bang for my buck? Let's capture that and then kind of work our way up the funnel. So generally speaking, for any SaaS product, the bottom of that funnel is going to be people who are searching exactly for what you are offering. So if I'm going after taxidermists, I'm going to look at stuff like, you know, how to, let's think here. I'd do some keyword research that and look at things that taxidermists might search, like how to get more taxidermist clients, how to grow a taxidermy business, how to I don't know, how to cut costs for a taxidermist business. Basically, anything that you can think of that a taxidermist might be searching for. And
Okay,
then I'm going to
just
put,
quick
yeah,
timeout. Where do I do
yes.
that keyword research?
All right, great question. So if you set up a Google Ads account, there is a free tool within the Google Ads account. It's called Keyword Planner. And you can go into that and essentially kind of type seed keywords, be like, okay, uh, taxidermist leads, or you could sometimes even just plug your website name URL into the tool. And then you can start looking through keyword suggestions that Google gives you, and Google gives you rough estimates of how many people are searching for those. So you might be like, oh, this is a beautiful keyword, but there's only 10 searches a month for it, so I'm not going to get any traction from it. This one over here, hey, there's 1,000 people searching that a month. I might get some traction from that. So that's one tool. That's a free tool. There are also some different paid tools out there that are third-party tools that are relevant to use as well, I'd say. Two of the top ones that come to mind are spyfu.com and semrush.com. Both of those are paid tools, but they'll give you more data and a different perspective than going directly to Google. And then if it's just looking for ideas, something like ChatGPT is great for coming up with ideas. You can say, hey, give me,
Yeah.
10 keywords someone might search if they're a taxidermist, and you'll get a lot of great ideas. Now, it won't tell you how many people are searching for that, but you can
Right.
then go to Keyword Planner in Google and get a sense for, okay, these ones are worth going after. These
So you
ones
could have like
aren't.
a two-phased approach there, kind of brainstorm and
100%.
then get the actual stats. Yeah. Very cool.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So then from there, where we go?
Yep. So from there, we identify our keywords, and then we want to think about, all right, what is the messaging that we want to present to taxidermists who are searching for these things? So if this is an app in an app store, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to send people directly to the app in the app store, or do you want to send them to your website to present more information and then have them be able to sign up for things and click through to the app store from there? A lot of the time, I would say both, I'd say both strategies are good. There's different campaign types within Google that are better fitted to those different strategies. So Google actually has a campaign type specifically built to promote apps where
Right.
you literally just say, hey, here's my app, and give it some general information about who you're targeting, and then create the creative that's actually going to display in ads. And then Google displays that across Google search and YouTube and other places to try to get people who they think are likely to download an app and get them to actually, when they tap the ad, it takes them right into the app store if they're on iOS or Android, and then gives them the option to download from there.
That's actually a very good point. So the software actually is smart enough to distinguish that. So whether I have an iPhone or an Android, it'll go to the proper ad store.
Exactly.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Basically, you'll run like separate campaigns. So this is okay, this is my Android app, and then Google's only going to show that to Android users. Same thing for iOS. But yeah, it
Got
can
it. Got it. Okay.
differentiate for that.
Very cool. That's awesome that they make it that easy that you just because that's what 99% of people who have the app are going to want to do,
Hmm.
because the sales process is set up through there, the all the other things, right? So,
Yep.
I actually when I work with some people inside of my practice and also inside of my apps, I actually will have almost like a separate sales page for the app,
Hmm.
so we
Yeah.
can still that's just running ads to a website.
Hmm.
So that's probably more of like a traffic or a conversions type of campaign. But for 99% of people, just like you want downloads and you want user signups. So that's super awesome that it's just like literally like, what's the goal? I want them to download my app. Done. Super
Exactly.
cool. Awesome.
The other thing too, I would think through when you're talking about different audiences, let's say taxidermists, like you said, some of them are kind of 20 years in the past. They don't have websites yet and whatnot. They, you may want to test and see, are they actually open to downloading an app just straight away, or are they expecting, a more traditional explanation of what this actually means? Say, oh, it's my newfangled thing. I don't know what to do with this. Or they're like, okay, a website, at least I get that. And then it explains how to use it. So I'd probably, test those approaches. Not necessarily as much in the campaigns going after the taxidermist searchers, people searching for that, but the actual taxidermists themselves, because they might be a little bit in the past, like you
Yeah, and
said.
I'll tell you just for any of you out there who are doing a marketplace, like so what I've found from my research is exactly what you just said, John. So the taxidermist guys or gals tend to be very, very technically outdated, right? So that downloading of an app is probably not going to be the best idea. So that's why I've actually changed the approach to just go to this funnel, this URL that is like basically a video that explains how all of this works and why it's a relevant thing. And then there's kind of an intermediary step there. Now the user part is a lot more app driven. There's all kinds of apps for hunting and fishing, and you can see there's apps that show different what am I trying to, the property boundaries of every different property all over the place. So there's a lot of people in that space that, from my research, they're more open to doing that thing. But for the other side of that market, I'm also realizing, like, yeah, that's not going to be the goal of that campaign, for sure,
Mhm.
for sure.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, so you get, figure out kind of the messaging of, okay, what are you wanting to communicate in your ads, and the type of ad too is going to depend on what channel you're using. So Google search is where you're going to be targeting those keywords that you came up with, and that's going to be, primarily text ads that just show up when someone searches on their phone or their computer. Sometimes you can have a picture show up next to the ad, but mostly text is what matters there. And then, of course, where you send them to is super important. Like you said, talking through your funnel, making sure that when they get to the page, it aligns with what they saw in the ad. That it's not this very different experience with very different, value propositions than what would they clicked on when they first saw your ad. So having some alignment's important there. And so that's kind of, the bottom of the funnel for going after taxidermists. I would also take a step up because you're probably going to have a hard time reaching a lot of people, is my guess, because not every taxidermist is going to be Googling things that tell you they're a taxidermist and that give you the opportunity to show them an ad. So
Mhm.
you also have to think about, okay, where are they spending their time, and kind of going to more of that interruption marketing as well that we talked about. So within Google, there's still a lot you can do there. So YouTube is maybe the next place I would think about.
Yeah.
So I'd identify, are there now, for some businesses, it's going to be easier that there might be kind of a pre-selected audience within Google to say, okay, business owners of this type I can go after. I very much doubt that there's an audience of just taxidermists within Google. So you're going to have to be creative and think through, what are they watching? Are there channels on YouTube, for example, or specific videos that really appeal to taxidermists? Whether that be, I don't know, learning. I don't know what that content would be. You'll know better than me. But basically, if there is that content, then you can target that content, those channels, those videos in your campaign so that your ad appears when people go to watch that content. And you can, be reasonably confident that a lot of the people watching those ads are going to be relevant to you, because only those people are the people that are going to be watching those videos on YouTube. So that'd be
Yeah.
the second place I'd go.
Yeah, I mean, well, then just as a quick timeout, that's very relevant for, I think, a lot of people too, because, like, if you're going in and you're setting this stuff up, and then I've done this in Facebook ads before, where you search for interests, and then there's like no results, and you're like, well, shit, like, what am I going to do? You got to be
Totally.
creative. You got to think outside the box. I remember I always go back to this concept that Russell Brunson had talked about, the Dream 100, right? Really getting and thinking, like, okay, for John, who does John follow online? Who do I think that he, like, what kind of books does he read? What kind of YouTube things does he watch? And
Mhm.
that takes some effort. Like, we like to outsource these kind of things and you can start with ChatGPT. You can use these types of AI tools to think. That's how I did a lot of this when it came to actually getting this app up. Like, what do you think would be a valuable thing? What would be valuable features? What kind of things would they be searching online? Those types of things. But
Mhm.
just because you use the AI to kind of get that head start doesn't mean that you can't critically think about, like, okay, what happens when you run into this like, you got to think your way through it. So anyway, just wanted to add that little piece of wisdom, because I've run into it many times myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the more you know about your target audience and can think creatively about where they're spending their time and what they're looking for, the better you can then translate into reaching them through advertising. And that's actually a perfect segue too to another type of targeting that you can do with YouTube and with Google's display network. For those who don't know, the display network is basically a lot of the ads that you see when you go to different just websites online. Those are actually served by Google. So you see image ads or video ads in the sidebar, that kind of thing. A lot of them actually come from Google and Google's relationships with literally millions of apps and publishers.
Hmm.
And so what you can do with Google is you can create a custom audience where you can input some different pieces of information to Google. So you can say, for example, I want people who are going to these types of websites. Let's say there's, 5 websites that, taxidermists go to, maybe a competitor website, maybe just information for taxidermists, whatever. If you know that most people going to that website are your target audience, you can tell Google, all right, people going to these types of websites, searching for these types of keywords, and maybe, if there is any audience pre-built audience data that Google has for you that's somewhat relevant, like, interested in hunting and fishing or something like that. You can kind of put those things together, feed that to Google, and then Google will try to identify patterns between those things and match those patterns to other users. This can be very effective or cannot. It really depends upon the industry, how niche it is you're going after. But it's worth testing because when it works well, it's giving you the opportunity to really identify your target audience and get in front of them. So that would be probably the next place I'd go. And similar to that too,
Uh-huh.
on the display networks, you could run a campaign where you could say, I want my ads to show up on specific websites. And if those specific websites are parts of Google's network, then you can show ads on there. So if you're like, hey, there's this one website all the taxidermists go to, they've got ads on there. You can look at the ad and click like the top right-hand corner of the ad. There'll be usually like a little like ad choices symbol, and you can see, oh, is this coming from Google or for somebody else? If it's coming from Google, then you can target that. They call it placement, but you can target ads specifically to that website from within your Google Ads account.
I mean,
Um,
you guys,
yeah.
that's crazy when you stop and think about that. Like for your app, right? Like you can, if you're a big user of something like a competitor, um, you don't have to start from zero. You can literally go on and for lack of a better term, you control their website. Like you can literally be like, hey, check this out, like over here. Like that's amazing, you guys. Like that's so crazy that you can that just shortens your time to traction so incredibly much. And I'm thinking about this in terms of scope way outside of what I'm doing. I'm trying to relate this to people. Like that's amazing. That is so crazy. That's really, really cool. Thank you for providing that. If that's really mind blowing. That's
Well,
awesome.
here's another fun tip when it comes to competitors. So there's a way you can actually see what ads they're running. So Google has this
Very
thing,
cool.
the Google Ads Center, where you can go there and you can search an advertiser's domain. And assuming that they've verified the Google Ads account, which most people have had to do at this point, you can actually see, oh, here's all of the ads that are pointing that they're using. You can see their video ads, their text ads, and so you can get ideas as well. Like, oh, I would never have thought of using that type of messaging. Obviously, don't rip them off. Don't exactly copy what they're doing, but take inspiration from what they're doing. And if they're more established than you, there's a good chance they've already done some testing and identified, spent their own money figuring out what ads are working, hopefully. And so you can take some inspiration from that and shorten your own learning journey as well, potentially.
That's awesome. I've used that with Facebook. I did not know
Mhm.
that existed for Google, but it makes sense. That's really, really cool. And then on top of all the different like AI tools that are out there to like create, different ads and things like there's really no excuse for being able to create like a really awesome type of thing. Very cool. Very cool. Okay.
Absolutely.
So now let's move on to okay, so I've kind of gone through this stage. I've got my account set up. I figured out what keywords I'm doing, figured out my messaging. I mean, I'm sure this varies. What do you recommend as far as like how do you scale up? Do you start with something small, like even $5 a day, $10 a day to kind of validate things, and then you scale up from there? I'm sure there's again, this is probably a very, very broad question because we're not talking about a specific niche, but so like let's go back just to go back to my example. Like
Yeah.
what would you recommend like I start with? How would I scale up? When would I decide? Is there certain milestones when I scale up? Like what would you say?
Yeah, fantastic question. So I think of scaling a couple different ways. You've got scaling by budget and then scaling by, type of campaign that you're running. And there's some other stuff too we'll
Mm,
talk about. But to answer the first part of your question, how much should I start with? It's going to depend, obviously, like you said, on the vertical, the industry, the app. But in every situation, you want to start with enough budget to where you're actually giving yourself a chance to prove the concept and to collect enough data to see what's working and what's not working. Because not every keyword, not every strategy is going to work.
right.
Advertising is very much about testing. So if you start with too low, let's take the $5 a day example. If you start with $5 a day and you're getting like, 1 click, 2 clicks, 5 clicks a day, you're never going to have enough click volume to really know, like, is this working or not working? You might get, a lucky download here and there. Awesome. But to really see if you have a stable business opportunity, you're going to need to get some more data than that. How much? Again, depends. What I would say is for most businesses, I would at least be spending $1,000 a month initially on Google Ads. There's, caveats out to the wazoo about all that. Obviously, if clicks are really, really expensive in your vertical, like if you're a lawyer and you're going after stuff, you're gonna have to spend more than that because each click might be $100. But generally speaking, for most businesses, I'd say at least $1,000 a month to just prove concept and run that for at least a month or two to see what's happening, what kind of engagement are you getting. Now, when it comes to scaling, if you are running campaigns that are seeing some success and they're limited by budget, the easiest way to scale those is to just add more budget to it. And Google on the search side of things will tell you how much you're limited by budget. There's this a metric called search impression share lost due to budget. Basically, it's Google saying, "Hey, if your budget was unlimited, here's how many impressions you could be getting for the keywords you're targeting with the ads you're running."
Oh, okay.
And so if you're losing any of that, then well, if I increase my daily budget, then in theory, I should get more traffic at the same kind of cost per click and same conversion rate as I'm getting right now because my ads aren't showing all the time because I'm running out of money.
Hmm.
Um, Once you reach that point where you're not limited by budget anymore in those campaigns, then adding more money isn't going to help you scale because there's only so much search traffic. And so that's when you start thinking about, moving your way kind of up that funnel as well as horizontally. So thinking through, maybe you started with keywords like, get more business for my taxidermist office or whatever they call it, company. Maybe there's other things that you could explore, like, okay, what are the questions that taxidermists are asking? I'm going to run a campaign about that, get these new additional keywords. And so I'm still on the search side of things, but I'm expanding horizontally to other ways they might be searching for things that I can kind of answer and get people into my funnel. Then from there, it's about, all right, beyond search, let's talk about, YouTube, let's talk about Google Display, reaching people who aren't necessarily searching Google right now. So I'm not able to reach them on Google, but they're relevant to me. So it's about identifying, again, those audience pieces of information. And Facebook, Instagram are great for that as well because it's sometimes easier with Facebook and Instagram to identify kind of the right audience than it is with YouTube or display. It really depends. But Facebook, Meta, they know a lot about us. And so you could potentially identify, they might have an audience of taxidermists or people who are interested in taxidermy, which that one's going to be trickier because that probably includes a lot of, just normal people who want to get their deer stuffed. But you can see what the options are there and then kind of expand. So that's how I think about scaling is, all right, lowest hanging fruit, people who are searching for me, then think about who is it that I'm targeting, where are they spending their time online, and then kind of work my way up the funnel. Um, and it's probably going to be a relatively short funnel for taxidermists. There's only so many places that they're going to be spending their time online that you can reach through advertising. And some SaaS companies, there's all different types of businesses or people that are relevant to their app. And so it might be like, okay, I'm going after this part of my target audience right now, in the real estate space. I'm going after first home buyers first. Then I'm going to cap out that market. Then I'm going for, mid-market. Then I'm going for luxury. Then I'm going for real estate investors. So you can kind of think about segments of your audience as well when it comes to scaling.
Okay. Have you guys ever done any like actual app store advertising?
That's a great question. We have not here at Step Group done any in-app advertising. Like, you
Okay.
go on your iPhone and you search for something and you see an ad come up. We haven't done much with that. I do, know tangentially that a lot of people see success with it. It really, I'm going to stop using the word depends because that's always an annoying word to use. But from what I understand, it's not that hard to do because most of the work is done by the platform. There's only so many levers you can control. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
I want to show up for these types of searches and whatnot, but there's not a ton of signals that you can control as the advertiser. So I would definitely recommend it to somebody with an app. Target competitor apps, people looking for competitors. That's a clear one. Target, tangential searches as well. So people who are interested in hunting, who are interested in fishing, those are the most likely people to be interested in taxidermy as well. So if they're, like you said, going to some of those other example apps you mentioned, looking at how to find a place to go hunting, for example, well, they probably would be interested in taxidermy as well. So you can target that type of app search.
Yeah, that's awesome. I only asked that question as a follow-up to your last one, because that's what got my very first one off the ground, and that's actually still something that I do from time to time. I'm actually this is really kind of getting me thinking that I need to go back into that service because I know that there's a lot of cool things you can do, and that's when I realized I was like, okay, I know that you can advertise in the actual iOS app store, and you can show, like, you could say, hey, I want to show up above Facebook when somebody searches for, above TikTok or things like that.
Yep.
But when it comes to running like the Google Play ads, that's done through the Google advertising platform, right? So it's
Hmm.
literally that's why it's done through that.
Right.
And I just wonder because it's very interesting to think about, like, what am I spending per download per user to get into my app or my SaaS platform, and then what can I make off of them? What's their lifetime value to me? There's a lot of different things that can go into, like, making sure this is mathematically sensible, right?
Right. Yes, and that is critical, is identifying what does success look like. A lot of newer businesses in particular, they'll be like, okay, I want to throw some stuff at the wall, see what sticks. And that is important. Sometimes you just got to see what works, but you also have to see, okay, how am I going to measure success? And, what are some realistic benchmarks I have to hit? If you're selling something and realistically you think the lifetime value of a subscription, let's say, is $100. Well, if you're spending $500 to get every download, that's not going to cut it. And you're
Right.
so far away from where you need to be that you're going to need to adjust course. That's not just a matter of, hey, I can optimize down and improve my numbers over time. That's, hey, I'm 5x higher than even breaking even. That's never going to work. I've got to try a different strategy. So knowing what you can afford to pay for a download, what you can afford to pay for, paying customer if you have a freemium product, etc. That is critical. And then using those as the benchmarks for any advertising that you're running to see, am I close enough to that after I give it some time to optimize where I think I could make it work? Or, yeah, no, I'm so far gone that let's just cut our losses here and try a different strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I want to get your opinion on this. I've talked with a lot of people that do Facebook ads specifically, and I've seen a lot of different ads on Facebook about doing Facebook ads, right? And
Mm.
there is there, I think there's a lot of people that tend to think, hey, you know what? It's really it's about the creative. It's about that scroll stopping image that, because we're all just doing this, and then boom, like boom, it's like visually that caught my eye, and I'm going to click play, or I'm going to see that image, and then I'm going to click read more, and then I'm going to get into that. So they say it's like the ad creative is like 95% of the ad, right? I'm just putting it's just a
Mhm.
general thing I'm
Yeah.
saying. Do you tend to agree with that when it comes to Google ads? Is it really more like, if there was one thing in that whole process you got to get right, is it the keywords? Is it the creative? Is it the target? What would you say? I know they're all important, but what's like
Right.
the one thing you can't mess up?
Yeah. With Google, I'll talk about search specifically because that's so different than the other sides of
Hmm.
of Google. With search, I would say, if I had to pick a single thing, I would pick keywords. It's who is seeing my ad. Ad copy obviously is very important, but because people are searching for something right now, when they see an ad come up, they generally think this is going to be relevant to us because Google's does a really good job of having relevant ads, and there's going to be only a couple ads that show up there. So if you search for something, you have a very good shot of getting a click, even if your ad isn't amazing. It should be amazing, obviously, because that's going to make things better. With Facebook, people aren't searching for something like you said, it's interruption, and so that creative is pulling them away from cat pictures and the update from Aunt Molly, and it's saying this is why you should look at us and change your brain and come engage with us. So yeah, I would say keywords over creative for Google search. Now for YouTube, Google Display, anything else that Google offers that's more visually oriented, not as search based, then yeah, creative is probably the most important thing there. Yeah, I'll say creative is the most important
Yeah,
thing there.
no, that makes sense because I know like and again I just think through like some of the things I've learned over time, and there's always people that say like, we spent $5,000 for someone to like build this super sexy looking funnel that has all these cool animations and whatever, and it
Hmm.
actually got outperformed by the ugly one that just has a video and a button and a form.
Yep.
And that's very interesting because like again, it's you have to play the game that's in front of you. Like the Facebook marketing or the Facebook advertising game is a completely different game than the Google search game, right? Like you said, there's a completely different behavior involved. So it's really worth thinking through. Like you said, like I have a problem. Like I just shot the bear of my lifetime, and I don't have a taxidermist. I don't really know anyone. I got to find that thing. So when I do taxidermist near me, oh my gosh, Trophy Makers pulls up.
Hmm.
Holy crap, this is exactly what I needed, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of why I've always thought like that would be like the way to advertise this thing. Um,
And I
so
think
it's
what you said there too, though, I'd love to double click on one thing there where you talked about, yeah, sometimes the super sexy ads get outperformed by the ugly ads, and that's where I'd make and that's 100% true. I see that all the time, and that's where I'd make the distinction where when we say creative so important, it doesn't mean it always has to be the super high produced, sexy creative. It's the creative that's the most engaging with people. And so it's testing and
Mhm.
figuring out, hey, maybe, this quote unquote ugly ad, just it resonates better. It looks more authentic. People don't want to see a professional looking, drone shot coming down over the safari. They want the authentic, hunter on his phone looking at the camera and saying, I just shot this and I'm going to trophy hunters. So it's not
Mhm.
about what looks prettiest, it's about what works best. And then that is why creative is so important because what works best is going to get you the traction that you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you don't have to worry about being perfect. You got to launch. You just got to get some stuff out there and test as you go. And I think
Yes.
that's where people like when I remember when I was getting started with it, I'm always nervous because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm spending money. Maybe it's a brand new project, so you might not have that much money to put into it.
Yep.
But it really is important to just spend a little bit and then you learn and then you tweak. You can't just expect it to just go and be like, oh my gosh, we got like every download is 2 pennies. And it's like it's not really going to happen that way. But
Yeah.
so okay, with the time I got left, I'm curious. Like,
Yeah.
what is I always like to ask this question, like what's like one of the biggest pitfalls that you see, like if you go in and you take over somebody's account, like what are the biggest things you're like, I mean, is it just kind of a mixture of all these things? I imagine just like, okay, your keywords are bad. You're not kind of targeting the right people. That those small tweaks can kind of fix things, or what's like the biggest thing?
Yeah, I'll say two. I'll cheat and say two of the biggest pitfalls we see when we take over accounts. First one goes back to that not tracking and measuring success. So they don't have
Mm,
accurate and comprehensive tracking set up within their ad account to say where are the downloads coming from, where is the traffic coming from, what's happening to that traffic after it gets to my website, and then feeding that back to Google. Because if you don't get that conversion data back into Google, then you don't know really how to improve, how to scale. Because I don't know, which 50% of the money I'm spending is working and which 50% is not. And I don't want to just, keep scaling the money I'm wasting. I want to scale the money that's working. So tracking is critical. And then the second thing I'd probably pick would be targeting, but more specifically, even within targeting, is understanding where your ads actually are showing up and what people are actually searching for to trigger your ads because Google Google can be a little sneaky about this, or at least it's not always intuitive to people who don't spend every day in the platform like my team does. For example, you might have this beautiful list of keywords that you think you're targeting, like taxidermist near me, blah blah blah. But depending upon your match type and how you have those keywords set up, you can go into your search terms report, which is kind of buried in the account, and realize, oh, Google's actually matching those to all these different searches, and only half of those are what I want. We see this all the time. We had a client in the moving space came to us, and we looked into their search terms like, hey, did you know that you're showing up for, people looking for like freight forwarding and U-Haul and stuff that had nothing to do with what they actually wanted traffic from,
Mm.
but it was tangentially related to the keywords they were targeting. So Google, in its all-knowing AI-ness, was like, oh, well, this is similar. Sure, let's spend your money on that. So yeah, just digging into what search terms are actually triggering my ads, what am I actually paying for, and then for some of the other campaign types, just understanding where are my ads showing up. Am I getting a bunch of traffic from like trash spam websites out there that probably are, bots or people that are not relevant to me? Or am I getting traffic from, huntingandfishing.com or whatever? That's a really important thing to look into.
Yeah, because then it almost becomes like the Facebook broadcasting thing. Really, you're just kind of spraying and praying. You know what I mean? So
100%.
very interesting. Okay. Last thing, can you give us just kind of like inspire me, John? Like what's give me a story of someone, with a SaaS product, an app product that you guys like worked with or that you saw that just like shot through the roof or did something really, really cool. Do you have anything you can share with that?
Yeah, let's see what comes to mind. So we have a client. I'll cheat a little bit in that we're still primarily doing lead gen for them, but then the lead gen gets into their SaaS product, and they're in the fuel delivery space. And so we're basically helping people looking for like bulk fuel delivery to a construction site, that type of thing. We're saying, hey, here's a platform, a network that connects suppliers of fuel to people who need that, so that when I'm out on a construction site, I can just go to the app and say, all right, I need, 1,000 gallons of fuel delivered tomorrow for my Bobcats and my fill in the blank. And it happens.
Hmm.
And
Very cool.
we've been able to help that client. We've worked with that client particularly for a number of years at this point, and have really helped them grow over time, and make those connections. They're mainly going after the demand side of things. They've got supply kind of covered. So really we're focusing on the demand and making sure that, when a construction site, when the manager at a construction site or fill in the blank, goes searching, they'll find the option. One of the really cool things about that client, though, in particular, is that they can assist during natural disasters. So, when there's a big hurricane, for example, everything gets disrupted. People are on generators, they need fuel brought in because the places have been hit that would provide fuel locally. And so it's really exciting to be able to present options to people. Hey, there was Florida just got hit by a hurricane. All right, we've got options for people to, get onto their app and order fuel to their, we've had news crews, for example, going down there and calling and be like, hey, we need fuel for our news crew. We're going to cover it. And obviously more important than news crews, the actual people who are doing the work, doing the construction and cleanup there. So that's been an
Hmm.
interesting thing to observe over time, how we're able to assist with that.
That's a very interesting thing you bring up around like it's almost like Facebook has like the events or life events type of way to filter, like, hey, somebody they just got recently married or recently had a baby or whatever.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to like pay attention to what's happening in the world and to say like, this time of year is hurricane season. There's, tornadoes in Tornado Alley. There's just a lot of, it's an election season. Like there's just different things that if you got really creative, you could target in a certain way with a
Mhm.
certain message to get more results, so for those of you out there with these products, like that's worth thinking about too. Does your solution fit into one of those things, right? Like that's a very interesting way to think about it too.
And that'd be, a great example with the taxidermy app is obviously it's going to be very oriented towards hunting seasons. So you'd want to
Yep.
track, like, all right, hunting season starts this week here, it starts that week there. Well, I'm gonna, tailor my ads around that, and not just do the one size fits all approach.
Yeah, funny story with that real quick. I did do some keyword research,
Yeah.
and when you go and you find like what's the searches for taxidermist near me,
Yeah.
it's zero until about October, November, and then it goes shoom, and then it goes right back down. So it's like
Yep.
literally that 1 month, it's like run ads at that and then turn them off. Like that's it. I was like, oh, that's super easy. It was so fun. It was such a
Yeah.
funny chart. It was like doot, 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 and then up and then immediately back down.
That's
So, and
funny.
that's right when hunting season is.
Yep. It's like
Very,
it's like Christmas, but for Christmas for hunters.
exactly. So, all right, John. Well, this was very helpful, man. Where can we go from here if we want to learn more?
Yeah, best place. So our website, stepgroup.com/free. We've got some free guides and things on there if you just want to learn more about Google Ads and different things. Also, our YouTube channel, Step Group, we put out lots of just free video content oriented towards helping advertisers. We like to say dominate with Google Ads. So if you want some free content, check those out. And if you want to hire a great advertising agency to help you out, stepgroup.com. We'd love to chat.
Nice, very cool. I would recommend the at least the free consult. I can't vouch for working with John. Just recently met, but I can definitely this basically entire podcast episode was the consult. So this was very cool, very awesome way to do this. Hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. I would highly recommend you guys go talk to John about whatever your idea is. If Google is or YouTube or whatever is your goal of how do you want to grow these things. Can definitely vouch. It looks like he really knows what the heck he's doing. He's been doing this for a while, and obviously a premier Google partner. Definitely too legit to quit for sure. You know what I mean? So awesome, John. Well, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we'll be able to talk soon.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
All right. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this episode up. As always, please like, rate, and review the show. We'll include all the links to everything John mentioned down below. Actually, John, we'd probably have to get some of those free resource links that you mentioned, the even like the paid keyword down or sites that you had mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Those would be super helpful. So we'll put those in the show notes as well for everyone. All right, guys. Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate you. And we'll talk to you guys next time. See you later.